And before we start the session, we'll just step back for a few moments of silence. Thank you. So warm greetings everyone, and welcome to the 9th session. And over to you, Vladimir. I hope you will benefit from the session. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and thank you all for coming. So today we have a topic on the word and the concept of the divine word in the Veda, which is the most central for the knowledge, for the Vedic knowledge, and also for Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga. So Sri Aurobindo, being a poet, discovered something fundamental in the Veda. He discovered that the consciousness intervenes into our manifestation through the word. And not in an ordinary sense, the word. What we think about the word is chatting, talking endlessly on the phone or on the WhatsApp or whatever. It's not that type of word. It's the vibration of consciousness which wants to manifest or to change something in the equilibrium already established. This constant intrusion of the word. By the way, if James wants to record, it's high time to record. Okay. This intrusion into the manifestation is a fundamental new understanding how consciousness functions in our earthly atmosphere. If you can imagine that all the creatures in the world grew up and developed on Earth, let us say. In the world we cannot say, when we say in the world we mean on Earth. And Earth is that psychic entity which is hosting all the creatures to grow in consciousness. And with this growth of consciousness change the body, so the body evolves together with the growth of consciousness, then how would they do it? How consciousness, higher consciousness, more subtle, could intrude, could come down, could express itself through this physicality, if not through the word? Just think about it. There is a subtle power in us which connects us to the innermost through the word, through that expression, through that articulation of some message or meaning. And that's what we are doing here. We are all meeting and we are talking. We are articulating consciousness constantly. And by that we grow. There is no other means for that intrusion, for the active intrusion. For the passive, yes, you can find it. But for the active, to know the higher levels of consciousness and to grow into them, the word is the must. You cannot avoid it. You cannot find another means. If you find other means, it would be the word again. It would be that very power of consciousness which expresses itself through us, and by that manifests more and more capacity of consciousness in matter. So what Sri Aurobindo discovered is that the word is not only poetic word, it is the powerful means of creation. So I will project my slides and want to highlight some of the topics for today. Let me project. So I chose these few topics because I cannot cover everything. There is too much to cover, especially in this linguistic way. And you know that my MA was in general and theoretical linguistics, and it was my primary interest to come to Sanskrit and Indian tradition, because the word is the power of consciousness which manifests higher consciousness. This is it. There is no other way to manifest it. If I stop expressing that consciousness in material manifestation, that means I will stop growing. What I wanted to highlight is these topics: logocentric and an anthropomorphic concept of creation on earth. When I say logocentric, I do not mean in Derrida's negative sense. Derrida looks at logocentric as something which is not totally real in a way, as something which is real as, like he looks at it as Nietzsche looks at it, as a metaphor. Metaphor as a secondary kind of shadowing of the reality. So metaphor is always late, always delayed with the true reality of things. This presumption that we have to be in the true reality of things is actually also a false notion. We are never in the true reality of things because we are in constant becoming. We are constantly growing into something else. We are not supposed to be only what we are, but we are supposed to be what we are not. And because of that, this notion of Nietzsche and Derrida, and this is the whole phenomenology that we are dealing with thoughts and words as some kind of secondary reality, is absolutely false, because the secondary reality is the intrusion of consciousness, which alternates our states of being, which is correcting all the realities and relations in the world in a new fashion. This creative aspect of the word was never seen, was never truly understood by the Western tradition. Only in India it was understood and thoroughly studied. And I want to come to it in a minute. So language as a system of knowledge in the Veda. There is a beautiful myth of creation in Mahabhashya by Patanjali. Mahabhashya is the commentary on Panini's Vyakaranam, Panini Ashtadhyaya, his 8 books on grammar. And it's a huge extended literature, mainly philosophical in nature. And there he explains how language came into existence from the word. The word is the power expressing consciousness, and that power was hijacked by the mind and formulated in terms of language, system of signs which will help us to formulate the inner being with access to the outer reality. So what that myth says is that Brahaspati, who is the Lord of the Divine Word, was teaching Sanskrit, the gods, yes, and he is Ganapati. Gana means the group of gods were following him as the as the students, and he was teaching them Sanskrit, the divine language, interestingly. So Indra was his first student. He was sitting always in front of him, you can imagine, and learned from him this infinite speech, words. Infinite speech in a sense that, as Patanjali says, Indra could never complete his studies because Brihaspati's word was infinite, 1,000 years. He looked at what he had to learn and how long it will take. It would take 1,000 years. And you know this, 1,000 is the symbolic number for infinity. Why it is so? Because whatever Brihaspati pronounced was true in that moment of time. So if it is true in every moment of time, and every moment of time is a unique manifestation, then this infinity could never be captured. So what Indra did, he understood he will never finish his studies of Sanskrit language, so he stopped that flow of Brihaspati, cut it into pieces by mental categories of subject, object, time, space, all the cases, vibhaktis, all the karakas, alphabet, and invented grammar. He cut it into grams, as it were, and invented grammar. And the grammar was the way to capture the word. So Indra could capture the word. That's why in Indian tradition, grammar is Aindram, Aindram belonging to Indra. The divine mind is the creator of the language. This difference between the speech, the word, and language we have to clearly see. The language is the formation by the mind, and the speech, the word, is the infinite expression of consciousness. Now, to arrive at the meaning of the word, of the sentence, of the text, we have to use grammar. Without grammar, we cannot arrive at the message, at the meaning of what was said. So we have to recompose the whole grammar. If we do not know grammar, if we do not understand the language, we cannot understand the message, the meaning. It's very simple in a way. So you can see that Indra as a creator of language and Brihaspati as the creator of the word are two great deities of Vedic pantheon. So let me cover this more, a little more. Sri Aurobindo writes about mantra, a supreme, an absolute of itself. That absoluteness comes from Brihaspati, a reaching to an infinite and utmost, a last point of perfection of its own possibilities is that to which all action of nature intuitively tends in its unconscious formations. And when it has arrived to that point, it has justified its existence to the spirit which has created it. This is a fundamental sentence. So nature intuitively, in all its unconscious formations, tends to what? To this possibility to express higher consciousness. Is it not so? So how would it do without the word? Yeah? And when it arrives at this expression, it has justified its existence to the spirit which has created it. So this justification is to take place in nature. That's why the word is needed. The word is something which nature doesn't have. And this idea of Nietzsche and Derrida that since it doesn't have, that it is not true, that we are dealing with metaphors which are not correct, is a fake notion. Of course we don't have the fully embodied spirit. Of course nature wants to embody the spirit, and she will invoke the expression of the word, of the highest expression possible in that moment of time, in that body, in those kind of capacity of the instruments of knowledge which she developed already with the help of the spirit before. And, as Sri Aurobindo says, fulfilled the secret creative will within it, within the nature. Speech, the expressive word, has such a summit or absolute, a perfection which is the touch of the infinite upon its finite possibilities and seal upon its creator, upon it of its creator. The mantra is the word that carries the Godhead in it, and the power of the Godhead, or the power of the Godhead, can bring it into the consciousness and fix there it and its workings, awaken there the thrill of the infinite in nature, the force of something absolute which nature didn't have, perpetuate the miracle of the supreme utterance. This highest power of speech, and especially of poetic speech, is what we have to make here the object of our scrutiny, discover. This is the way to the spirit. That's why we read the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gita, the Savitri, all Sri Aurobindo's books. Why? We want that expression to become actualized, activated in our nature. Is it not so? It's as simple as that. In the secret knowledge, Sri Aurobindo writes in this mysterious way, we must fill the immense lacuna we have made, rewed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind. The narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea, reconstitute the perfect word, unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one. Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. And then there is a famous passage everybody quotes, but I will quote again, how it works, how the word works and changes our consciousness. This is a description what it does and what happens to the person who opened to it, to the mantra. As when the mantra sinks in yoga's ear, its message enters stirring the blind brain of the nature, that unregenerated instrument which wants to be spiritualized, and keeps in the dim ignorant cells its sound, keeps it there, it vibrates. The hearer understands a form of words, and musing on the index thought it holds, he strives to read it with the laboring mind, but finds bright hints, not the embodied truth. So if he approaches it with Indra's language attitude, he has only hints. He cannot capture the Brihaspati's depth of the truth. Then, falling silent in himself to know, he meets the deeper listening of his soul. Not the mind anymore. Soul is Brihaspati. He listens to his own words. The word repeats itself in rhythmic strains. Thought, vision, feeling, sense, the body's self are seized unutterably, and he endures an ecstasy of an immortal change. He feels the wideness and becomes a power. All knowledge rushes on him like a sea. Transmuted by the white spiritual ray, he walks in naked heavens of joy and calm, sees the God face, and hears transcendent speech. This is the action of the word psychologically upon us. This is what it does to us. Sri Aurobindo defines in the Veda, he found in the Veda that powerful word of the Rishi, which I want to address in this presentation. And he describes the whole Vedic system of knowledge in this one paragraph. Let us suppose a conscious use of the vibrations of sound, which will produce corresponding forms or changes of form. Let us realize then that a vibration of sound on the material plane presupposes a corresponding vibration on the vital. Is it not so? Yes. How it could come on the material plane if the vital would not provide it already before, without which it could not have come into play. Absolutely. The mental presupposes, yes, that again presupposes corresponding originating vibration on the mental plane. If the mind didn't make its move, the vital would not form it into this force which will correct everything on the physical. There would be no relations. Mental is first, vital is next, and physical is the last to receive that. But a mental vibration implies thought and perception on the supramental. And thought and perception and a supramental vibration implies a supreme vision and discernment. I missed somewhere. And the mental presupposes a corresponding vibration on the supramental and the very root of things. Here we are. So on the mental plane, everything which is coming as a structure, as the Indra actions. Yeah? Indra's action is on the intuitive plane or the plane of the overmind. It could not come into play if the supramental move would not be there. It is the supramental move which defines overmental, and overmental defines the mental, and mental defines the vital, and vital defines the physical. Everything on the physical comes from the supramental plane. It is the chain of change, and on the mental and the physical plane, we have the final kind of outcome, the result, as it were. But a mental vibration implies thought and perception, and a supramental vibration implies a supreme vision and discernment. All vibrations of sound on that higher plane is then instinct with and expressive of this supreme discernment of a truth in things, and is at the same time creative, instinct with a supreme power which casts into forms the truth discerned, and eventually, descending from plane to plane, reproduces it in the physical form or object created in matter by etheric sound. Thus we see that the theory of creation by the word, which is the absolute expression of the truth, and the theory of the material creation by sound vibration in the ether correspond and are two logical poles of the same idea. They both belong to the same ancient Vedic system. This is an amazing revelation. So everything what we perceive here as objects of our sense are created by the same consciousness power, Chit Shakti, which generates the understanding of these objects in us psychologically. Therefore, our linguistic reality, inner reality of thought and the outer reality correspond. They are kind of matching. If I say, not linguistically, that I'm going home by bus, and I'm going home by bus, they are matching 100%. My linguistic idea and the action outside with the objects are in full 100% match. And because of that, it is true and real. Everything is real for us. And because of that, it is distinguishable and knowable. We can know the world because of the word. So there are mean levels. Sri Aurobindo defined here: mental, vital, physical, and supramental beyond. I will touch upon these from the linguistic point of view. For those who study linguistics, it could be very interesting, or philosophy of language. So we have three major functions of language. When you hear this, what is the major function of language? Usually they say communicative. Yeah? But there is not only communicative, there is also cognitive function of language and creative power. So there are three levels of meaning: semantics, syntactics, and pragmatics, which actually correspond to these three. Syntactics has to do something with structuring relations. Pragmatics is what is reaching out to the vaster context. And semantics has something to do with the meaning as such, which is very difficult to define. We have in the Vakyapadiya of Bhartrihari and Mahabhashya of Patanjali these three levels of speech: Pashyanti Vak, the seeing word; Madhyama Vak, the middle word, which is defining the structures in the text, dresses this intention which we received into the language; and Vaikari, which is expressing it outside. And there are three corresponding Shaktis in Kashmirian Shaivism. Ichha Shakti, the intention, the wish Shakti, is represented by Pashyanti Vak as an intention. Jnana Shakti, the knowledge, is the structure when we dress it into the language, create the text, which is cognizable by the outer consciousness and can be communicated to others. And Kriya Shakti, the action, power of action, that means speaking in the moment of time. This is an important thing because it actually is the same as Sri Aurobindo said, with no contradiction. And if you look at this, I made this scheme long ago, but I'm using it all the time. We can see here that these two, the outer objects and the words, the inner and the outer reality, the reality of the world and the reality of the objects, because everything in this world we have in two different realities. Yes, I can show you, for example, a glass, and then I can write a glass. I can have a word glass and the glass. Yeah? The word glass means the meaning, and the glass as such means the material object, embodying that meaning of the glass. They are corresponding. Glass means this, made of glass, and can contain water, can be broken, we can drink from it, and so on. There are many meanings related to this particular object, and they are all inbuilt in the word. So artha, the meaning, and shabda, the word which expresses this meaning, are very different on the material level, on the physical level. There are two different realities. I show you the glass and write the glass. They are separate. But on the level, on the highest, which is paravak, transcendental, they are one and the same, Chit Shakti. There is no difference between the knowledge and power. Power immediately is activated by knowledge. There is no delay. There is no gap between them. The gap is created during this process of creation. I show the line down from the transcendental to this world in time and space. And it undergoes levels of differentiation. On the level of Pashyanti, we have the intention, which comes to us like aha moment. Yeah, I know what to say, but I don't have yet words. And then I need madhyama. I need to take this intention, hold it, and dress it into the language the best I can in order to express that intention the best I can to the surface consciousness. Yeah? And on the level of madhyama, when I do this, there are two differentiating qualities that kind of show up, as Tantra would say, idanta, thisness, and ahanta, I-ness. There will be a subjective perception of this need of expression and the objective means which will carry this expression and for what it comes. Idanta, thisness, and ahanta, thatness. That separation is taking place on the level of madhyama. And then it is totally embodied, finally, in the physical world as Vaikhari. This I wanted just to show you because Artha and Shabda is the major fundamental issue of all philosophies. How to unite Alpha and Omega, how to connect these two, how to make this world of Paravak, transcendental world, here embodied in the world, that there will be no delay between the power and knowledge. That power will be knowledge and knowledge will be power. There will be no more gap between them. Yeah? So to reduce this gap, the whole process of evolution is taking place. There is much more to say about it, but for the lack of time, I will not go into it. So I will highlight few of the concepts in the Vedic tradition, this Artha and Shabda, meaning and the word. We have also Rupa and Nama, form and the name, Vidyava and Prithvi, heaven and earth, Manas and Vak, mind and word, Chakshuk and Shrotram, seeing and hearing, Vachya and Vachaka, signified and signifier in general linguistics. Saussure actually, Ferdinand de Saussure, took it from Vakyapadya. Vakyapadya, 4th century AD, had already spoken about this signified and signifier. And so he, being the linguist and the professor of Sanskrit language, his PhD was in Sanskrit language, he knew about this. That's why he never claimed the authorship of his theory of general linguistics. It is only his students afterwards published this work, his notes, from the lecture notes, and he became famous as the father of general linguistics. But the father of general linguistics is in Sanskrit in India, Bhartrihari. So, and apprehensive and comprehensive cognition. So few things I want also to highlight from this, Manas and Vak, speech and mind. If you take, for example, Shanti Patha of Rig Veda, Rigvediya Shanti Patha, every Shakha, every Veda starts with Shanti Patra, with invoking peace. It sounds in this way, and my students know about this. Vang me manasi pratishtita. My speech is established in my mind. Mano me vachi pratishtitam. And my mind is established in my speech. This is Alpha and Omega as one sound. Aviravir maedi. Be open to me the mind, be open to me the speech. You are both the foundations of the Veda. Don't leave me. By that which was revealed to me, I connect days and nights, like pearls on this string. I connect them, days and nights, by that what was revealed to me in the oneness of the word and the mind, of the Artha and Shabda. Yes. May that protect me. May that increase me, protect the speaker, increase me, increase the speaker. So this is the mantra which is implying exactly this realization through the word and its meaning. So here maybe I will stop and open to the questions, because I have another part, a new approach to science and language, with Sri Aurobindo's dealing exactly with the Vedic language and what his discoveries there. Yes. So let me stop here and see where we are all together and whether we are on the same page. I guess it's closer to to our modern thinking, I guess, a little bit away from Agni and Indra and so on. Yeah. So you can all engage.
This I just have a comment, I guess. But it reminds me very much of the artistic process of trying to bring, subjective experiences into objective reality. And that just reminds me of that's just what sorry, can't talk for some reason, but yeah, when you were describing the word and I'm sorry, I've totally lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
This is a good sign, actually.
But it was just reminding me of the artistic process and what I kind of go through, trying to bring, experiences that I have and bring it into my artwork.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you were talking, it just reminded me of that.
Yes, absolutely the same. How else would you manifest? Because you are putting your Pashyanti work into different language, into the language of the art. So a language of the art is a different means of expression of this Pashyanti work. There are many languages. There is not only verbal language, there is also artistic language, musical language, gesture language, look, language of looks, and so on. In Indian tradition, in Avadhana system, they have this Netra Avadhana. They have also Avadhana proper when they create poetry with words, but they have also Netra Avadhana, the communication by looks, where you have to be able to read what the person is looking you at with, to read that what he wants to communicate to you with his look. People who live together for a long time, they read each other's looks very easily. So there are many languages which can embody this word. Yeah, not necessarily only the verbal word. Yeah? Animals have their own means, body languages, the signs of gestures, and so on. I think everything speaks, everything communicates in the world, in the nature. You will see how beautifully. Mother even expresses this about the trees. When the sun sets, she feels how they all, rise and tend towards the light. This is also a communication. It's a self-expression. The word is the power of self-expression. And it uses the means, the languages it has. So art is no exclusion here. So in that sense, of course, you're absolutely right. You get the idea, the Pashyanti, Abhinavagupta beautifully describes this process in a very simple way. Maybe I should say about this here. The difference between Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari, 3 levels of speech, how it comes down to us from level to level. He gives this simple example, I will nearly quote from him. Suppose you want to go to the village. You got the Pashyanti, I have to go to the village. Some command came to you from somewhere. Yeah? And then to go to the village, this is Mahapashyanti, he calls it. It's a great intention. But then to go there, you have to do many more things. You have to close the house, feed the cows, take the things. So many smaller Pashyantis have to be completed before this Mahapashyanti going to the village is completed. So you do many actions before you engage with that major action. So when you come to the village, you come for something, buy some rice or something, do something there. And that rice or doing is, you don't even see what it is for, because it is going beyond your narrow spectrum of understanding. So there is great Mahapashyanti behind, he says. So you go to the village to buy rice because you have to live, because day after tomorrow you will have to do something which you are not even aware today. And that is Mahapashyanti, which is even higher, which you didn't receive yet in smaller streams as aha. Yeah? So you received only small aha, and you're doing it, but there are other ahas coming already. They're all waiting. They are in the queue there, standing and waiting one after the other what to do next. And higher you go, and the more ahas are there until you reach to the top of Sadashiva, of the Lord himself, who is manifesting the whole world with all these fundamental relations which come to you only in this moment of time as, I know what to say, I know what to do, I know what to paint. And they are all part of the same creation process of one Shakti, one word. So that's why we have to learn to read the intentions. For example, somebody comes to your life and says something, you have to look at it not as an intrusion only, usually we do, as disturbance. Yeah? Why did you come? Disturbing my kind of equilibrium. But also as something which wants to manifest. And you should look not at what person says, but at what he wants to say and why he is there in your life. So you have to step a little higher, in a little higher intention, and see how it connects to you, how it relates to your path, to your aim. And that's why Mother says it's very important to have the aim in life, because that is kind of defining Mahapashyanti. Yes? If you have the aim in life, all other smaller actions, Pashyantis, will align with that aim. They will lead you there without any confusion and deviation. Look how beautiful, simple it is. So the word is not only the word we speak, because it is the lowest level, physical, but it is the formulation or self-expression of higher consciousness in us, which wants us to become something which we are not yet. This is the power which pushes us in this evolutionary process. And of course, here the major Christian tradition comes in very beautifully. Yes, I'm looking at Selby. At the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then the Word came down, traveled, and became the flesh. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. It becomes the object. That very vibration of consciousness becomes the object of sense and the understanding of that object of sense in our own consciousness. This is the duality of this Vedic creation.
Vladimir, sorry, would you say that sound is a form of communication, all sound?
Sound, yes, sound, and not only sound. Sound is good because when you don't look in that direction, you hear the sound, you start looking at it. Yeah, it draws your attention without you seeing it. We cannot see everything at once, so the animals are, as Gebser says, hearkening. They are constantly listening. They are not looking. They are just listening because this bubble in which we live communicates with us. Any sound tells us something. We are always reading the sounds, always. Silence, we read, oh, good, silence, I can rest. Or the birds are chirping, or the car is moving. I'm reading it, and I know what is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Vladimir, that also means we should be very careful of what we speak.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
if we are not conscious and we bring instinctive anger or some low emotion into our speech, then we are totally disregarding this higher power and knowledge. So we should be very, very, conscious of what we speak, right?
Absolutely. The power of speech can be hijacked by many forces in us. We are unconscious of the forces. Some disturbance comes, some vital force intrudes, some desire, dissatisfaction, some pain, and we express it in words. Yes, so we manifest it in a way. Every expression is manifestation, silent or verbal. So one has to be very careful with what one says. Very careful. Unless you want to be.
I just want to.
Yes.
I just wanted to go back to something that you said that hit me. That without knowing our aim in life, then we mistranslate what is going on around us. So the critical component, and what I was thinking also is, this whole area of nimitta, right, of omens, that anything that we try to translate, a cat coming up to us or somebody saying something that offends us, without understanding kind of our ultimate aim, then we misinterpret that, whether it's taking it personal or not really hearing the intention behind it. And so I've never really connected the extreme importance of, first and foremost, knowing what our personal aim is in this life, which for all of us is the same: growth of consciousness and eventually divinization. Then we misread everything, we mishear everything, we misinterpret everything, we misspeak everything, right? It just becomes a jumbled mess, if you will, and nothing that can actually help us progress towards that aim.
Absolutely. So well put. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. As this misinterpretation is taking place all the time, somebody offended you, that you misinterpret. If you don't have the aim, if you have the aim, you will see whether it fits into it, and it must fit into it if you have it. Yeah. And when you read it in that way, that is not offensive. It's actually a help. It comes as a help. They are not an offense. When I don't have the aim, if I don't remember, don't understand why I am here for, then it is an offense. It's an attack. And I have to fight back. Yeah? I have to assert myself separately in my separate existence because they attacked me. Mhm. I don't take a hint that they are actually here to help.
So for that matter, Vladimir, as mother says, thought also has a power. So thought is also communication. One has to be careful not just about what one speaks, but what one thinks. Because the minute the thought is formulated, it goes out there and manifests and takes action, right?
Absolutely. You know that in four austerities and four liberations, when Mother speaks about mental, perfection, she speaks about the words. We think in words, in meanings. Yeah, we think our thoughts come to us in two different forms, as Sri Aurobindo says, in the form of the formation, vision, yeah, picture. We can think in pictures or in words. Mainly it is both, yes. Well, the words trigger the pictures trigger the words, because words and nama and rupa go together, yes. Every time you see the image, you comprehend the image, why it is there, what it does there for you, yeah, or wants to do, and that is nama. Or anytime you think about the meaning, you generate the image. So word and mind go together. My mind is established in my word. Yeah? And in that sense, thoughts, yes. Thoughts as particular formations of concentration of consciousness on certain events, certain energies, kind of bring them back to life. Yeah. And so if you think something negative is actually already in your life. It's here, embodied, manifested. So we need to review our process of speaking and thinking totally, and feeling also.
Sri Aurobindo also says that thought also comes from outside of you.
Yeah.
We catch thoughts from outside. I guess that's a universal thought, or
yes. Or not necessarily universal. It could be your thought which you generated and left there, comes to you again and again and again, yeah, and disturbs you all the time. And also some similar thoughts which are kind of in tune with your requirement, yes, similar to your thoughts. They come, and many of them are not of your own origin, and sometimes there are also intruders, very powerful thoughts, which can actually determine your wrong movement, yes, suggest different way of being. All these powers, yes, they are coming from the universal mental and the universal vital. They're all there. Everything, as Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, everything which was once given the right to exist has the right to exist forever. This is something we have to really remember. Whatever we generate will be there forever in that infinite storage. Something very important for us to. Mother even says in 1971, she says, "You won't believe what is coming to me now. My thoughts and wishes from my childhood and my teenage, when I was in Paris, those things try to come back. They were once generated long ago and they were hanging somewhere there, and now they try to come back to the same Adhar, to disturb and to generate their life there, because they want to be lived, to be experienced again and again." Yeah? These are kind of samskaras of the Buddhism created there, and we have to kind of get rid of them, or not to get rid of them. There is another method, not to give them importance. They can pass through without being, captured by us, without paying attention to them too much, seeing them passing through, but without taking them seriously or as important my wish. without appropriating them. Yeah? They will fly through like the birds in the windless air, as Sri Aurobindo says. The birds in the windless air. I see them all. This is my thought from before. But it does not affect me. I am not affected by that thought anymore.
Thank you.
Some other thoughts?
Question, Vladimir. So this gap that's between words and objects, or between the word and language, that grammar that Indra develops. So the objective is to bring this gap, to close this gap as much as possible and make it one and the same, which I'm assuming is how it is in the supramental. How does the Sanskrit language, different from other languages, help us to close that gap between words and objects?
Yes, excellent question. By the way, Sanskrit language is the only one, I will have to send the link first, is the only one language which covered the huge period of development. Yes, all the structures known to us, from the archaic to magical to mythical to mental, all the structures from the beginning of Yuga, Satya Yuga, Treta, Dvapara, and Kali Yuga. Through all the yugas, the same language. Now notice, it's a very important feature which other languages do not have. Other languages do not have that historical depth and shift of paradigms. You can trace it through one language, and that's how it becomes noticeable. You cannot trace this shift of paradigms through English language because it's only in the mental structure. So it's stuck here. But in Sanskrit, you can go deeper into the Upanishads, Brahmanas, and then finally into the Vedas, prehistoric times. And you see how the language was used. It gives you the examples. You can learn from that how to think in different way, in different paradigm. And those paradigms are to be all collected by us, from the highest to the lowest, yeah? And become transparent, as Sri Gapsar says, and become efficient in us. And that generates a very interesting study. We see how the language was used before, and that's what I will be doing in my second half of this presentation. And not only in the one yuga Sanskrit was used. Sri Aurobindo says it was the language of each manvantara of this kalpa. Sanskrit is the language from the beginning of kalpa. Can you imagine that? It's not even language of one manvantara. So what does it mean really for us as psychological beings using this language, this divine language? It means something unthinkable, really. We have access to all possible frames and realities and paradigms of knowing, being, on all levels of consciousness. If we want to be conscious and aware. And in that sense, Sri Aurobindo put Sanskrit forward as the means, as the language to be studied for this purpose, to create a new science of language. And he discovered the etymological background of Sanskrit, the system of etymons, the root sounds. He arrived at Brihaspati's speech and saw from that Brihaspati's speech deviations in many different directions to many different languages. This is what he did. For him it was very important, and for us, I believe, because we are all human beings, and the one thing we use most is the word, speech, more than anything. I will send the 1 second. I want to ask James, could you put into our WhatsApp the connection to this Zoom, please? Because I cannot find it now. I have other files.
Joining details. Sorry.
Yeah, just Zoom link, because people dropped out and they want to come back.
Okay, sure. We'll do that.
Thank you. Let me take then second half if there are no questions. So there are some comments on this. No? No? Okay. I know my presentations are very brief and loaded with many different meanings, so it's not easy to comprehend everything at once, but as a layout for the future studies, it will be very useful. So, new approach to the science of language. That's what Sri Aurobindo was doing in his Origins of Aryan Speech. A new approach to science. That's how Sri Aurobindo says. The true method of science is to go back to its origin, the embryology, the elements and more obscure processes of things, from the obvious only the obvious and superficial results. The profundities of things, their real truth, can be best discovered by penetration into the hidden things that the surface of phenomena conceals. Into that past development of which the finished forms present only secret and dispersed indications, or into the possibilities from which the actualities we see are only a narrow selection. A similar method applied to the earlier forms of human speech can alone give us a real science of language. Law and process must have governed the origins and developments of language. Given necessary clue and sufficient data, they must be discoverable. It seems to me that in the Sanskrit language, the clue can be found. The data lie ready for investigation. Now, when he started to look into the Vedic Rishis language, those Rishis who brought this fundamental vision of the group soul into our Manvantara in the form of the Veda, he discovered this. This is his definitions. The Rishis' use of language was governed by the ancient psychology of the word. When in English we use the word wolf or cow, we mean by it simply an animal designated. We are not conscious of any reason why we should use that particular sound for the idea except the immemorial custom of the language. And we cannot use it for any other sense or purpose except by an artificial device of style. But for the Vedic Rishi, Vruka, the wolf, meant the terror, and therefore among many other applications of the sense, a wolf. Dhenu meant the fosterer, nourisher, and therefore a cow. But the original and general predominates, the derived and particular is secondary. So the cow and the wolf are secondary. They are the objects which were, described by that particular quality or the meaning of the word which describes a particular quality, terror or nourisher, fosterer. So that's how we name the objects. We name the objects by a particular quality which that object reveals to us. Some of his features becomes the nickname. It's a nickname. I can call cow by many names because cow can do many things. The same wolf. Wolf can run, wolf can, go into the fight and so on. It can be many, many different names. The Vedic Sanskrit, says Sri Aurobindo, abounds in a variety of forms and inflections. It is fluid and vague, yet richly subtle in its use of cases and tenses. And on its psychological side, it has not yet crystallized, is not entirely hardened into the rigid forms of intellectual precision. The word for the Vedic Rishi is still a living thing, a thing of power, creative, formative. It is not yet a conventional symbol of an idea, but itself the parent and former of ideas. It carries within it the memory of its roots, is still conscient of its own history. This is something very important. It carries within its memory, within it, the memory of its roots. When you recover the system of etymons, you will see that all the roots are located in such a way that the positioning or the usage of particular sound in a particular order generates a particular flavor, or that Brihaspati's speech, yes, which is supported by the whole system. When I use root E is to go to focus on one particular movement of consciousness in spite of the whole background, which stays undifferentiated. Then that E flavor gives that one-pointedness. We have these roots, chi, to collect, to gather, from here, chit consciousness as a power of concentration on one chosen point. I can focus my consciousness on the chosen point, disregarding the rest. Or G, to conquer, to focus on one particular point, to break through. Or Shi, to sharpen. So you will see all the roots will have the same flavor of E as one-pointedness, narrowing down consciousness and pointing in, fixing it on one spot. That particular quality is not visible in other languages already, because they already fixed, they created these rigid forms and intellectual precision and fixed them to particular objects. Unless you step back and start analyzing every form, as in English language, if you go back and start looking at synonyms, for example. I give this example often in my classes of Sanskrit. If you take, for example, big ocean and huge ocean. For the mind, big ocean and huge ocean are the same formulations. It's something big, yeah? Great or immense. So all these different words come from different roots and express totally different meaning. Big and huge are totally two different meanings. But for the mind, they are the same, or similar at least. Only poets feel the difference because they arrive from different sound values. They arrive from different Brihaspati's expression. So big is something bulky, heavy, like lead. And the huge has an extension, has the space in it. Yeah, you feel the. So how do we know this? All of us know this through the sound meaning. We do not pay attention to it anymore because we construct the meaning. We are constantly dealing with construction, with visual construct of relations. We are not diving deeper into the very semantics of every expression. So that's carrying the memory of its roots. By the way, it is also available in English. English is charged with all these roots. I was giving examples of roots: sta, to stay, st, it's like st, yeah? You come to the full stop, yeah? Or you stumble, or you station, stable, stool. You will see all these words with st and you will be surprised. Yeah? Even stupid. You will have these st coming to the to the wall. You hit the wall, as it were. So there's some stability in it. So it comes from this usage of the sound of articulatory device in the system of etymons, and or any words with the re sound, re which is vibrating within the limit, trying to break through, drilling. Yeah? You will have all these words with the re, where there would be this intense focus on one point and energetic trying to break through, breaking through. And that when ri is changing to li sound, it is already gliding, not breaking but breaking, not crushing but clashing. If you start analyzing these meanings, you will be surprised where you will arrive at that, with the feeling of the word, how to use it properly. It's just for the fun a bit. Right. Thus, says Sri Aurobindo, and here I will stop. I have to stop already because I want to discuss these things. Okay. I will skip and I will read only this part from here. The principle of partition from the one root to many different families of words was at first fluid, then increased in rigidity, until word families and finally single words were able to start life on their own account. For, in the first state of language, the word is a living and even a more living force than idea. Sound determines sense. In its last state, the position have been reversed. The idea becomes all-important, the sound secondary. This is Sri Aurobindo writing in The Secret of the Veda. And here I would like to come to something what Mother says about the mantra and the word which acts upon our consciousness, and here I will stop. This is a treasure, what she says. We have to learn this. In this regard, says the Mother, we can say that the active power of words comes from three different causes. And you know, the Mother, Savitri, is herself incarnate word. She is the power of the word. Consciousness, Chit Shakti. The first two lie in the word itself, which has become a battery of forces. Battery of forces. The third lies in the fact of living integrally the deep thought expressed by the word when we pronounce it, so our own experience. Naturally, if these three causes of effectiveness are combined, the power of the word is considerably enhanced. First, let us look into these three. There are certain words whose resonance in the physical world is the perfect vibratory materialization of the more subtle vibration produced by the thought in its own domain. Total match with the mind, and they vibrate and they become totally effective for this manifestation. If we examine closely the similarity between the vibrations of thought and sound, we can discover the limited number of root syllables, that's what I was referring now, which express the most general ideas, and which are to be found in most spoken languages, with an almost identical meaning. That's what I was giving starot. This origin of language should not be confused with the origin of written language, which are of an altogether different nature and correspond to different needs. Second, there are other words which have been repeated in certain circumstances for hundreds of years, and which are instinct with the mental forces of all those who have pronounced them. like rishis or generations were pronouncing mantras. They are true batteries of energy. So even if we pronounce the mantra which we do not understand, like Sahana Bhavatu, we immediately feel connection. Because they are charged from before. They are in the subtle mental and vital world, are there the entities with which when you engage, they bring their power into you. And finally, there are words which assume an immediate value when they are pronounced as a result of the living thought or experience of the one who pronounces them. When it is totally sincere to the person, true to his inner being, that word which comes, even the same word if you pronounce it without connection would not have power, but with the connection it has a tremendous power of conviction and communication. To illustrate what I have just said with an example, here is a very powerful word, for it can combine the qualities of all three categories. It is the Sanskrit word Om, or Aum. So it can combine our intention to reach to the Brahman Supreme. It is that power which is generated by the generations, and it is immediately working through us. And if we are sincerely pronouncing the sound, it will be the most effective, powerful sound. Here I will stop and open to our discussions. No discussions. Om. Om, one big discussion.
Vladimir, I've heard Tamil language is older than Sanskrit. Is it true?
I must tell you, there are no older languages or younger. They are all coming from some other form. So before there was another form, then another form. I don't think so. If you compare to the classical Tamil and ancient Tamil, you will see forms which you will not be able to understand by modern language. In Sanskrit, it is not so. This is the amazing part. It is the same language throughout, which is kind of unthinkable. There was the whole article by Toporov, who is the academician from Moscow, and he wrote an article how Sanskrit survived over millennia or thousands of years. It is his view, of course, scientific view, but quite interesting from the point of view of functionality of language. He says that Sanskrit generated many languages, like Indo-Aryan languages, all these languages, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali, Punjabi, they are all coming from Sanskrit, yes? They are the Prakrits. And if you study the history of languages, you will see when they were formed and how they developed over hundreds of years. So Hindi came from Bharaj and Hindustani. Hindustani was before. And in Hindustani you have Hoti instead of He. And then you step a little deeper, 100 or 200 years back, and that was Bhavati. Bhavati became Hoti, and Hoti became He in Hindi. So you see this reductionism, because when you speak in natural way, you don't need to pronounce all the syllables. They are always reduced. We are in a hurry to say things, because we are communicating about outer things. We are not trying to hold on to the language as an expression of the inner consciousness. That's how Prakrits were generated. So you can see the whole history. It's amazing how reductionism is actually intruding into the languages. It is happening in every language. It's not only Indian languages, it's English for that matter. Intervocal position, all the consonants are reduced and disappear. Like I was giving example of 20 becomes 20. Two already disappeared in American pronunciation. Yeah? So this is happening with living languages, with languages which are not looking back. So what he says, that while generating other languages, Prakrits, Pali for that matter, some people say Pali was original to Sanskrit. Such a nonsense. You see in Pali all the distortions of Sanskrit forms. How come that it could be original and the Sanskrit was the derivatory? How come that Sanskrit became more sophisticated than the origin? It never happens that way, just opposite way. It reduces and becomes simplified. So he says that this simplification was always there, a kind of a ground for Sanskrit to look back to its origin, and with this understanding of how the flow of speech is distorting the sounds in the natural way of speaking, the rules of Sandhi of Sanskrit, yes, they became aware of these distortions and could maintain the original form over millennia. This is something interesting from technological point of view, how Sanskrit survived. This is partially true. But I think this awareness, self-awareness of your articulation of the truth, you have to take time with Sanskrit to articulate the truth. It's not the language which you just want to say and to let be. Yeah? Sanskrit doesn't have those elements of the Prakrits, such as all kind of stupid jokes, or it doesn't have them. You cannot say such things like "don't worry, be happy," or "sooner rather than later." There are no such forms. Yeah? What do you mean? There are no such forms. These, parasitic forms of language. When I translate from English to Sanskrit speeches of some people we were publishing, some speeches, I found so difficult to translate it properly because there are no such meanings. They are all parasites. Parasites in language, they mean something to indicate some state of feeling rather than any meaning. Sanskrit is very precise. What you say, it is there. You don't mean something. You don't ask in Sanskrit, what do you mean? Yeah? Because what you said, you meant that. It was there altogether. And this is the power of language which we lost. We mean too many things. Our language is very vague. We say one thing and mean something which others don't even comprehend what we meant to say. And it is because of transparent etymology. In Sanskrit, for example, if you say the chair, in English is chair, word, and then to sit. You have to remember two different forms. Chair, sitting, put together, okay. And by using chair, sitting, sit on chair, and so on. So then you will start understanding that meaning. But in Sanskrit, it will be asanam or asandah, from root as, to sit. It's a sitting thing. So it tells you what it does. Yeah? Every word tells you what it actually means. If we know etymologically, even deeper, from the simple root sounds, as Mother says, then we even know more. We know how we arrived at this contextual meaning, how it was generated and created, this word. And we know that this word is only descriptive of particular quality and nothing else. A very simple example, I can use anything, for example, table. If I take a table, why table? Yeah? Table is something flat, yeah? Because tabla is flat. And on the flat you can, put things in order to see them separately. Yeah? But it's one option of creating table. It can be utpithika, as in Sanskrit, something which is uplifting things up. Yeah? I can take another meaning of it and use it as the description of the table. In English, table also can be timetable. Why timetable? It's not table anymore. Why table? Because tabla is again flat place on which you can clearly see what is what. So you see where we are. We are dealing with words as if they are things. And they are not things. They have their own reality in the linguistic space. They live there. And poets feel it and can apply and create poetry, change the meanings. I can make table, the stool, my stool, I can make a table when I use it as a table. I can take my guitar, put there, cover it, put some food on the guitar, and it will be my table. I can put it on the ground and it will be my table. You see how approximate we are with our usage of language. This is something to think of.
Question, Vladimir. You hear sometimes that the Rig Veda made use of old Sanskrit, of an older Sanskrit, that there are certain words that are being used there that are not part of the more traditional Sanskrit. What were those words that didn't survive, and why this difference?
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you, Radhe. Actually, those words are readable as any other word in classical Sanskrit. Why? Because of the roots. It's a different form of the same root with a little different shift and bend and flavor, yes, but the root is still there. And because of the roots, I can read those words. It is very interesting because in my course, we had in our St. Petersburg University a course on Rig Veda. And our teacher was bringing us always new hymns to read. And I remember we read the hymns and she asked us to translate. And I translated without any kind of translation she was giving us to translate. Yeah? And I translated it and she was surprised and said, how did you know this, that there is this meaning of these words? They are not met anywhere. I said, but because of roots and the context, roots and context. You can see them. Yeah? It is readable. They are not met in that form, in that fixed form, in the classical Sanskrit. Classical Sanskrit preferred to use other formations and derivations from this root. From the same root, you can make many derivations with rich grammar. Grammar allows you to create many different formations. And then with preference of language, you can use one set of formations instead of the other. And in different places, in different states of India, in different parts of India, there are different sets of preferences of the words to be used. From here we have dialects developing and Prakrits and so on. So once we understand the root system, we enter into that ancient language. Of course, Vedic language is much richer in terms of grammar. It allows forms, grammatical forms, which classical Sanskrit does not allow. Panini fixed that. It is through Paninian grammar that we already have no access to the Vedic, totally to the Vedic language, because he made a preference for the classical Sanskrit. But Panini, 500 BC grammar, this is classical Vedanga, classical grammar, describes all possible varieties of Vedic use. And then he says that it's better this way. It's more applicable to that language of that time. So that selection was made and it became the basis for the development of classical Sanskrit. But it doesn't mean that we cannot read that grammar in the Vedic. We recognize the forms, but they allow the combination of different grammatical forms which classical Sanskrit does not allow. I hope I didn't confuse you with all this. No? Great. So this is our word, introduction to the Vedic word, and why it was so important for Sri Aurobindo, because the word creates us and the world around us. It brings the expression of consciousness. When we express it from the highest is manifested through us. When we express it through the lowest is manifested in us. So we need to be very selective what we express, what level of consciousness in us we express. Because the word creates. From here, all this power of propaganda, brainwashing, of advertisement, it is the intrusion of the word into your consciousness to make you something which you are not, and to fit into that requirement. So be very vigilant with what you read, or read with critical mind, as an exercise to see what they want to do with others. Great. I will stop here, but let us stop with a minute of silence, and then we will have the final session tomorrow. Thank you all. Namaste. See you tomorrow.